Good morning. So glad that you could join us today. I hope everyone had a Merry Christmas. If you don't know me, my name is Nathan Strickland. I'm the youth minister here. And this is somewhat of a milestone for my young ministry career. This is my first official sermon. So if you don't like it, just remember it's my first go, okay? Just remember I'm a rookie at this. I was actually supposed to preach last month, but we brought in one of the preaching candidates. And I have to imagine that the elders kind of orchestrated this to keep me out of the pulpit. I had to imagine that they're trying to okay, we have to keep him away, so we'll give him the Sunday after Christmas. Maybe there'll be less people for him to preach to. So yeah, first official sermon. And the longer you live, you realize the more firsts that you kind of go through. So for kids, for example, one of the biggest firsts you have is your first day of school. And you have a lot of those, a lot of first day of school. And the thing about first is that they're unpredictable. They could be good, they could be bad, they could be neutral. Maybe nothing special happened. For kids, first day of school. For parents, I have to imagine the thrill of the first time getting to ground your children. Like, imagine you grow up, your parents ground you, you go to your room you're mad. I can't wait to grow up, I can ground my own kids. I have to imagine that's a thrill. I have to imagine for my parents, that was fun to get to ground me. For someone like Jeff Kreider, who just retired, you have your first retirement big project or your big retirement trip, and I have to imagine that retirement has been good for him. I'd like to tell you about one of my firsts in my life. 3 years ago, I was a youth intern for my youth minister, Trent, and Trent takes his group to this day on 2 major mission trips, usually in June. And the first one is to a place called Camp Barnabas. And this is a special needs and disabilities camp. So we go, we're staff, we're counselors for these campers that come from all over for camp. And I have to imagine that Trent still tells the story. I remember telling Trent, it's my first time. I never went as a student. I never went as an adult volunteer. But I did go as an intern because I was paid to go. And I told Trent, this is my first time, it's my first experience. I'd really, I think it'd be easier for me if I had someone, who could, feed themselves, clothe themselves, bathe themselves. And I have to imagine he still tells his story to anyone who is doubting going to Camp Barnabas, that his youth intern of many years ago requested these things and got the complete opposite of what he wanted. So on the next slide, you'll see my camper. And we were shooting BBs. We were shooting something, I think it was BBs. There's some guys from our group, in our youth group, and then there's my camper. And I kid you not, they have the whole thing where the parents come and drop their kids off. He's 40, in his 40s. His parents drop him off, and I go up to the van and I help get him out. And his parents literally hand me a packet of here's how to take care of our son. I'm this is overwhelming. This was hard. But, honestly, I'm going to say it was a good week. Okay, I look back, it was a good week. The first 2 days were really hard for me. Not taking care of him per se, just things that had happened, and honestly, sometimes his attitude, understandably. And it was really hard for me. By the end of the week, it was a good week. I'll tell you my final straw. I'll skip all the parts that happened. I'll tell you my final straw of I'm ready to go. Is we were doing something, and we were down at the pavilion having a little dance party or something. I can't remember exactly what happened, what caused him to do this, but I reached over, or I tried to adjust something. I cannot remember for the life of me, but he punched me in the face. Mind you, this is a 40-something-year-old man. It hurt, okay? He punched me in the face. I was I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go home. This is hard. But again, the end of the week. So we have a good rest of the week. His parents pull up in the van. I take him to the van. I'm this man hates me, obviously. I help him get in the van. And he gave me a hug. And it made every hard thing that happened that week kind of fade away. And I just thought back on the week that was really hard, but that week was not about me. I was a staffer. I was a counselor. The week was not about me. My job was to make sure that he had a good time. I had to endure the week to make sure that he was good, whether he hated me or not, no matter how many times he hit me or however many times he did whatever else. I had to make sure he had a good week. I had to have this sense of enduring love for this camper. And I think about this idea of enduring love, and I can't help but think about God. I can't help but think about this verse that Phoebe just read on the next slide of Psalm 136, verse 1. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His faithful love endures forever. And this chapter is 26 verses, and it repeats that phrase after every line. So give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His faithful love endures forever. Give thanks to the God of gods. His faithful love endures forever. Give thanks to the Lord of lords. His faithful love endures forever. And there's some variation of his love endures forever multiple times in Scripture, like upwards of 40 plus. My research may be off, but it's in there a lot, which makes me believe that this is an important concept. And sometimes I feel like God's love for us is hard to grasp. It's hard to understand. Like, it's reckless, it's crazy. It's like we can't understand, we can't comprehend it. And so, hoping by the end of today we can come to understand God's love for us just a little bit more. So today we're going to talk about God's faithfulness through enduring love. First, I'm going to talk about love, then I'm going to talk about endurance, and I'm going to talk about enduring love, and then I'm going to see how it applies to us, because everything's got to apply to us. So, first, love. One of the best ways that I've come to understand love, God's love for us, is his role as a perfect father. Think about a perfect father who does everything you need a father to do and everything you need a father to say. A perfect father. So I'm going to need your help with this. So think about your role, church, father, mother, guardian, caretaker. Think about your role. So help me out here. If you fall under one of those parental figures, raise your hand. If you are a parent of some kind, okay, a lot of hands. Now remember that for this next question. Those parental figures, raise your hand if your child has ever disobeyed you, made you upset, annoyed you, hurt you, maybe even hurt you. Yes, if your hand was raised for the first question, it better be raised for the second question, especially if you're a parent of one of these teenagers, because I know I'm their youth minister. I get it. Parents, I'm trying my hardest. I'm trying, okay? I'm trying to whip them into shape. Now remember that. Now hear me finish this question before you raise your hand. Okay, I promise you're going to want to hear me finish the question. Raise your hand, those parental figures who just raised their hand. Raise your hand if you have ever loved your child less or stopped loving your child because they disobeyed you or because they hurt you or because they made you angry or annoyed you. Not a single hand went up. Not that I saw, unless you're raising it really low so that your kids don't see it. I get it. I understand. An even crazier idea to me is what parents say when they find out that they're going to have a baby, right? You find a mom and dad find out they're going to have a baby. What do they tell the baby before they're even born? Oh, we love you so much. We're going to love you so much. We're going to take care of you and protect you. Mind you, church, this child has not washed one dish. They've not taken out one bag of trash. They've not picked up one toy in their room. In fact, they can't even reciprocate their love for you. They can't tell you they love you. They can't show you that they love you. It's the same relationship that we have with God. We've disobeyed him. We've made him angry. We've probably annoyed him. I would be annoyed if I freed my people from slavery and I performed miracle after miracle in the wilderness and they kept saying, we should go back to Egypt. I would be annoyed. Let me tell you, before we could even express our love for God, he loved us. And his love endures forever. So what is love? On the next slide, you're going to see one of my favorite passages in the whole Bible. 1 Corinthians 13, 4-7. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It is not irritable, and it keeps no record of being wronged. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up, never loses faith, is always helpful, and endures through every circumstance. This is God to us. His patience endures, his kindness endures, his humility endures for us. So let's talk about endurance a little bit. Does anyone in here run marathons on Thanksgiving Day? Anyone? Oh, good, cool. We got a cool crowd here. Now, as much as I would love to diss those people, I have to show my respect to them. To be able to earn their Thanksgiving meal, where I just wake up, don't eat until the 2:30 meal that my mom said would be at 1 o'clock. Now, granted, I'm going to say this, otherwise she's going to get on to me later. She's ready at 1 o'clock. It's the other people who are coming late with the food that are not there till 2:30. Okay, she's ready by 1. But the idea of a marathon, that is something that you endure. You run through it. It's like you keep going and it's hard. You get to the end. You're not like, man, that was super easy and fun. Like, you're like, whew, that was hard. But I endured. Kids, it's like if you have a bad day at school and you come home, your parents are like, how was school today? It was rough, but I endured. Right? you're not ever going to say, oh, it was great, I endured. No, because endurance is something that takes effort. Same for your spouse. How was work? Oh, it was rough, but I endured. All right. So let's talk about endurance. The definition of endurance is actually on the next slide. Endurance is the ability to withstand hardship or adversity or to sustain a prolonged activity or effort. That's all I'm going to say there. Hear me say this. By no means am I saying that it is hard for God to love us. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying that his love endures. His love withstands hardship. And I only say this because we as people know that when people hurt us or disobey us or do us wrong, that sometimes it feels a little harder to love them. But our love is not perfect, and God's is, endures. His love puts up with our wrongdoing the same way that a parent, a lot of you, put up with your kids' wrongdoing. You don't stop loving your kids. Now that we know what love and endurance are, we can talk a little bit about enduring love and God's faithfulness. In the same way that God is faithful because he never abandons us in the storm, in the trials, and the tribulations, and the hardships, it's the same way that his love endures for us. His love never abandons us. When life is good, when life is bad, when we feel hopeless, when it's confusing, maybe when we don't even feel love from anyone else, God's love endures because he is faithful and true to his word. He never stopped loving the people that he called, right? You think about Moses. His love survived Moses' disobedience. His love survived David's wickedness. His love was extended to someone like Paul who persecuted the church. His love endures forever. And God's greatest act of enduring love was displayed on the cross. And this was endurance. It says right there in Hebrews 12 that Jesus endured the cross for the joy that was set before him. That was not something easy. It's not Jesus going through his trial thinking, man, this is super fun and easy. Like, I love this. The cross was something that Jesus endured. It was hard. It was a hardship. Okay? We all know the classic, well-known John 3:16. We know that God so loved the world. Okay, I'm gonna use a different John text today. John 15:13 on the next slide. You see that there is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. This is what Jesus did. He laid down his life for us, the greatest act of love. But what if he didn't? What if he didn't endure the cross? There's a preacher, his name is Dan Mohler, and I've really only seen like a sermon clip of his. I never really watched one of his sermons. He's kind of an older guy. Maybe some of the older people know him. And look, he's old, okay, just saying. And one of probably the most powerful sermon clip that I've ever seen was from his, about a minute long. And I can't even just tell you about it. I have to tell you what he said. I'm going to say it with a little, maybe slightly less passion than he said it with, and I'm not going to yell at you, but my voice will raise. Okay, this is what Dan said in his sermon. And it was about a 2-hour sermon, which I'm like, I'm not going to hold you that long, but it was called The Power of Love. This is what Dan said. Can you imagine Jesus dropping the cross? I've had enough. If you people didn't change by now, you'll never change. I've done nothing but good. You broke my heart and broke my trust time and time again, and even if you say I'm sorry, how do I know you won't still do it? I'm done with you. I've had enough. Every person in this room has felt that way and talked that way and treated each other that way, and we can't even imagine Jesus doing that. But the reason he does what he does is to set the example to become what he is. God doesn't want to just lavish you in love. He wants to transform you in love. Whew. I should have gone to acting school. No. One of the most powerful sermon pieces I've ever heard. What if Jesus did not endure the cross? What if he finally gave up and said, I'm dropping this. They don't deserve it. That's not what he did. But thinking back to what Dan said about how we've all felt that way and talked to each other that way, and how Jesus did what he did to set the example to become what he is, leads me to believe that he endured the cross, this act of enduring love, which means that we need to have enduring love for one another. John 15 is a great place to start, laying down your life for one's friends. I'm not saying that this is not just a physical act. I'm not saying that if you see someone on the street about to get hit by a bus, that you need to push them out of the way and take the bus. That's not what I'm saying. This idea of laying down one's life for others is an attitude, okay? Sometimes it's laying down your wants, your desires, your ways for others. But Nathan, what about those who are just so unlovable? I have enemies, they're unlovable, I just cannot love them. Raise your hand if you know someone in your life that is just unlovable, or you've known someone in your life that is just unlovable. Like they're hateful, they're mean, like I can't love them. It's hard. It's too hard, Nathan. They've hurt me so much. Kids, this may be a bully at school that picks on you every day. I'm glad the kids are here. I can talk to them too. This could be a bully at school that picks on you every day. Adults, this could be a coworker that you work with that you just can't stand, that they just get on your last nerve and they're hateful. How do we love these people? I'd like to give some insight, some ideas on the next slide. Loving the unlovable. First, I'm going to say that boundaries are okay. I'm not saying that if they're a constant threat or danger in your life that you need to go out of your way to, be in their life. I'm saying if you cross paths and you have an opportunity to show love, could you show love, right? So kids, if you're standing in the lunch line at school and your bully is in front of you and he drops his tray of food and he kneels down to pick it up, could you, who is standing right behind him, kneel down to pick it up with him? Adults, this could be your coworker. You're walking into work and maybe that coworker is walking in right behind you. You have the opportunity to slam the door in his face, or could you just simply hold the door for them? Could you do that? And even if you set those boundaries, pray for these people. Pray for them. Pray for everyone, first of all, but pray for your enemies. Pray for the unlovable. And I don't mean the prayer like, God, let them see the wickedness of their ways and let them, change and make them a better person. Amen. I feel like maybe a lot of us have prayed that prayer. I'm not saying pray that. I'm saying pray for them the same way that you would pray for your friends and your family. Because when you start to pray for someone that you would pray like your friends and family, you may start to see them. That's hope. That's the potential hope, is that you start to see them in a new light. Start to see them as the child of God that they are. Because maybe they are unlovable to you, but they're not unlovable to God, the God of enduring love. Pray for them. Remember that you don't have to feel love, you just have to act love out. I'm not saying that you need to see someone like, oh, rainbows and butterflies in my belly, I just love that person. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you could feel about someone, but when it comes down to it, if you have the opportunity to show them love, are you going to show them love? And number 3, change your perspective. I've noticed in my life that life becomes a little less complicated when I stop making it all about me. When I put God first, when I put others first, my life becomes a little less complicated. So I may look at someone and think, I can't love them. I can't love them. But what if I change my perspective? How can God love this person through me? How can God love this person through me? Because it's not about me. Maybe this person needs love, the love that you're withholding from them. Maybe they need that God's love. I tell our students all the time that showing love to people can change them, because Christ's love is transformative. On the next slide, you'll see a picture of a gift from the youth group. Apparently, October was Pastor's Appreciation Month, so the youth group got together and got me a gift. Some of my favorite chocolate and a candle and a card, and my favorite part, the mug. Be careful or you will end up in my sermon. And because this is my first sermon ever, I feel like I have to use a youth group story. And the thing is, they don't even know what story I'm going to tell. So this is fun. So earlier this summer, we went on our middle school mission trip. And we went down to Poplar Bluff, and we worked with the Bread Shed organization. And I just love Bread Shed. We all love Bread Shed. But on every trip we ever do, we do something called family time. And this is a tradition that I continued for my youth group. So we do family time. We talk about the day, like how was the day, what did you learn? It's just time for us to debrief the day. So I said, this is what we're doing tomorrow. And what are you looking forward to tomorrow? Do you know what I'm going to say? Okay, awesome. So we go around the circle, we get to David Bardwell. And he says the most profound and humble thing that I've ever heard a 13-year-old boy say. Are you ready? I don't think serving old people food will be fun. Wait for it. But I'm ready to be proven wrong. Yeah. And we all laughed at first because we're like, wait, that's funny. And then we were like, wait a second. Yes, that's really deep. That's profound. What if we kept this same mindset when it comes to loving others. On the next slide, you're going to see I shifted David's quote a little bit. I don't think loving them will be beneficial for either of us, me or the person I'm trying to love. I don't think loving them will be fruitful. I don't think loving them will help them. I don't think loving them will heap burning coals on their head. You're going to have to do your own research on Proverbs 25 to see what I mean by that. I don't think loving them will change them, but I'm ready to be proven wrong. Have we lost faith in the power of God's love to change the heart of man? When we love people, do we neglect to love people because we're like, oh, they're not worth it. They're not going to change. But they need to experience God's love, and you're withholding that from them. Have we lost faith in God's power to change people through his love? This mindset could help steer us into the act of enduring love. And this mindset takes humility. If you remember from 1 Corinthians 13 on the next slide, I put it in red letters. Love is not proud. It takes humility to love the unlovable, our enemies. It takes humility. Trying to put yourself lower than them, like laying down your ways, your desires, your wants to love someone else. That takes humility. But as we know from 1 Corinthians 13, love is not proud. You want to know the power and the importance of enduring love? On the next slide. Love fulfills the law and it covers a multitude of sins. Love is important. I don't know if you knew this. Galatians 5:14, the whole law is fulfilled in this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. And this becomes ever more apparent if you just even think about the 10 commandments. 10 commandments alone. I tell our kids all the time. God's law is rooted in 3 things: loving God, loving your neighbor, and loving yourself. Not loving yourself in the prideful sense, loving yourself in the protective sense, and the not corrupt your way sense, taking Sabbath and not coveting, stuff like that. Love covers a multitude of sins. 1 Peter 4:8 says, above all, maintain constant love for one another, because love covers a multitude of sins. Not in the case of I can sin as much as I want as long as I love people, but in the idea that when you do sin against someone or someone sins against you, there is an opportunity for forgiveness, grace, and mercy to be played out, each 3 of those being rooted in the idea of love. This is the power of love. I'm going to go ahead and call up the praise team to let you signal that I am about done. Praise team. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. When someone hurts us, disobeys us, wrongs us, whatever, they bring a smidge of darkness into the world. It's wrong. So why is our response sometimes to retaliate with the same kind of energy, the same darkness? When they sin against us, we decide, let's bring more darkness into the world. My God tells me that light drives out darkness, not darkness drives out darkness. When people sin against us, we need to show them love, because maybe they need to be changed through God's love, and we cannot withhold that from them. It's just as Dan Mohler said in his sermon, God doesn't want to just lavish you in love, he wants to transform you in it. So here's my final charge to you today on the next slide. Are you simply going to just receive God's enduring love, or are you going to let him transform you in it? Are you just going to be a recipient of God's love and say, hey, God, thanks for the love, I appreciate it, now I'm going to go do me? Or are you going to take God's love and let it transform you and go show the world how good our God is? It is for that reason and many more that we give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His faithful love endures forever. Amen.